Remember the all-bare photo shoot done by Marilyn Monroe? Well, there was a huge reason behind it. Today we're diving deep into the most scandalous life of Marilyn Monroe, and believe me, there are more than we can count. Roles that reflect her public image. If you remember, Marilyn Monroe immediately became the epitome of the dumb blonde stereotype when she first appeared on cinema.
Young lady, you don't fool me one bit.
I'm not trying to.
It wasn't a coincidence. Early in her career, Monroe was portrayed as a ditzy, naive lady whose ambition and appeal frequently depended more on seduction than talent.
Now don't worry about me. I'm only concerned about you two. There's a wonderful moon out tonight.
For example, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes or All About Eve. These personas were more than simply works of fiction. They reflected the desire for Marilyn in Hollywood and possibly the rest of the globe. The distinction between her real life and her on-screen persona became hazy, and the gossip began to spread. As her characters frequently implied, did Marilyn actually sleep her way to the top?
That's right. Because if a girl's spending all of her time worrying about the money she doesn't have, how is she going to have any time for being in love?
Marilyn fueled this ambiguity with her fun yet cryptic comments in interviews, relying on the image that made her famous. But behind the scenes, it was evident she wanted more. She envisioned serious, complicated roles that would push her and allow her to demonstrate her range as an actress.
It's men like you who have made me the way I am. And if you loved me at all, you'd feel sorry for the terrible troubles I've been through, instead of holding them against me.
Speaking about altering the script, she did precisely that in 1955 when she faced Hollywood's largest studio. Rebellion against 20th Century Fox, 1955. In the 1950s, actors were constrained by strict contracts with studios, allowing limited room for artistic expression. Marilyn Monroe, on the other hand, was not a rule follower. By 1955, Marilyn had become a box office phenomenon, but she was tired of the shallow, typecast roles that 20th Century Fox continued to offer her. Instead of calmly accepting her fate, she took an extraordinary action and walked away.
No, don't say another word.
Marilyn packed her things and left Hollywood for New York to pursue acting at the famed Actors Studio. This was more than just a job change, it was a proclamation of freedom. Marilyn was not content with being a gorgeous face. She wanted to demonstrate her talent and depth. Her disobedience sent shockwaves through the industry. At the time, opposing a large studio was unprecedented, particularly for an actress. The media portrayed Marilyn as demanding and ungrateful, but she was determined to take control of her career. She even founded her own production business, Marilyn Monroe Productions, cementing her reputation as a trailblazer as well as a star. Eventually, the company relented, allowing her more creative freedom and better positions. Marilyn's defiance was more than a personal success. It was a watershed moment in Hollywood's power dynamics.
No, 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 no!
While she may have won this battle, her next scandal highlighted further concerns about control, agency, and exploitation. Allegations of exploitation. Marilyn Monroe was widely seen as the epitome of femininity and allure. However, there is a darker side to that image, one that has provoked passionate debates about exploitation and agency.
I figured it just isn't right to drink champagne in matador pants. Would you mind fastening my straps in the back?
Marilyn's success was largely due to her sex appeal. Her studio promoted her as a sexual figure, utilizing provocative images, sensuous performances, and well-planned press stunts to keep her in the spotlight. Marilyn initially embraced this reputation, which had propelled her to popularity, but it eventually became a cage.
I stay kissing sweet, the new dazzle-bent way.
Behind the scenes, Marilyn started to wonder if she was in charge of her image or if society and the studio were taking advantage of her. For instance, the notorious Playboy pictures were a perfect illustration of this tension. They were later published without her permission, having been taken before to her ascent to stardom. Although the public adored them, Marilyn saw it as yet another reminder of her lack of control over her own story. The controversy expanded beyond Marilyn to include discussions about how women are treated in Hollywood. Was Marilyn a victim of a system that eats up and spits out women, or was she involved in her exploitation?
No, don't say another word.
One thing was clear, Marilyn's story was far more complicated than her glamorous facade, and as the scandals continued to pile up, the lines between victim and victor became increasingly blurred. But if you think this was the peak of controversy, think again. The next scandal really took things to another level. Strategic handling of scandals. If there's one thing Marilyn Monroe mastered during her career, it was the art of turning scandal into strategy. While many stars tried to avoid controversy, Marilyn embraced it, and more importantly, she used it to her advantage. Take the infamous nude photo scandal, for instance. In 1952, it was revealed that Monroe had posed nude for a calendar years earlier, long before her Hollywood stardom. For most actresses, this would have been career suicide, but not for Marilyn. When reporters contacted Marilyn about the images, she did not deny, hide, or apologize. Instead, she answered with humor and candor. "I was hungry," she famously stated, explaining that she required the funds at the moment. However, not every scandal can be handled with a chuckle and a smile. As her reputation grew, so did the scrutiny, notably of her sexuality. While Marilyn continued to enchant audiences, the criticism reached new heights, as seen here.
She was a pain in the ass and difficult to work with.
Sexualized public image and criticism. Marilyn Monroe was the quintessential sex symbol of her time, but that title came with a heavy price. While her male fans idolized her, they were also quick to criticize her, especially when it came to her bold, boundary-pushing choices. One common critique was that Marilyn was shedding her clothes too often. For many, her overt sexuality was both thrilling and threatening, reflecting a societal tension that simmered in post-war America. On the one hand, Marilyn represented freedom, liberation, and confidence. On the other, she became a lightning rod for debates about morality and decency.
And she was just using her position to, emulate herself.
Nonetheless, Marilyn did not back down. While her detractors accused her of being shameless, her supporters admired her adventurous attitude. The controversy simply added to her allure, making her an even bigger celebrity. However, the criticism was not only external, it also wounded Marilyn personally. Behind the scenes, she battled with the weight of her reputation and the relentless scrutiny. Was she in control of her sexuality, or was it being manipulated against her? This internal conflict became a recurring topic throughout her life and career, and it wasn't just strangers who tried to control her. It happened in her personal relationships too. Marriage to Joe DiMaggio. Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio seemed like the perfect couple. She was Hollywood's brightest star, and he was one of baseball's greatest legends. Their 1954 wedding was a media sensation, with fans eager to see Marilyn trade her glamorous life for a more domestic role. But the fairy tale didn't last long. While Marilyn was used to the spotlight, DiMaggio struggled with it.
In the wedding at San Francisco City Hall of movie actress Marilyn Monroe to former Yankee baseball hero Joe DiMaggio.
He was a traditional man, and Marilyn's larger-than-life persona and fame as a global sex symbol contradicted with his conservative views. Their relationship deteriorated after Marilyn's now iconic presentation for US troops in Korea. While the soldiers admired her, DiMaggio was outraged, fearing she was revealing too much about herself to the public. This was more than just a difference of opinion. It reflected the deep schism in their marriage. The anxiety rose during the making of The 7-Year Itch, when Marilyn shot the famed air vent scene. DiMaggio's envy erupted when her white dress billowed up, exposing her legs to the public. He reportedly berated Marilyn in public, unable to reconcile her sexuality with his traditional values. The media had painted their marriage as a perfect union, but the reality was far from it. Shortly after the air vent incident, Marilyn and Joe announced their divorce. The split shocked fans, but it also solidified Marilyn's reputation as a woman who refused to be tamed, even by a baseball legend. Of course, this wasn't the end of Marilyn's tumultuous love life, nor the last time her personal choices would become public scandals. The Playboy centerfold. Marilyn Monroe's connection to Playboy is one of the most defining and controversial moments of her career. In 1953, Hugh Hefner launched the magazine with Marilyn gracing the very first issue as the centerfold. The catch: Monroe never actually posed for Playboy. The iconic photos were from her earlier nude calendar shoot, which Marilyn had done years prior when she was still an unknown actress trying to make ends meet. Hefner purchased the rights to the images for $500 and used them without Monroe's direct involvement or consent. And yet, the association became inextricable from her legacy. The Playboy centerfold solidified Marilyn's status as a daring sexual symbol, but it also rekindled arguments in America about morality and decency. At the time, conservatives were outraged by the photographs, which were deemed obscene and risque. Critics called her immoral, and some of her supporters wondered if she had gone too far. But here's the twist: Marilyn, true to her personality, handled the situation with her usual wit and grace. What's fascinating is how Monroe's image was both weaponized and celebrated. On one hand, the photos solidified her as a sex symbol. On the other, they raised questions about her autonomy. Was she a trailblazer owning her sexuality? Or was she being exploited by the men around her? It's a question that lingers to this day, but if there's one thing Marilyn proved, it's that she didn't need permission to shine. And yet, not all of her bold choices were received with applause. Some stirred rivalries, like her infamous appearance at the Photoplay Gold Medal Awards. Photoplay Gold Medal Awards Dinner, 1954. The Photoplay Gold Medal Awards Dinner of 1954 was supposed to be just another glamorous Hollywood affair. But when Marilyn Monroe walked in, fashionably late and wearing a skin-tight gold dress, the night became the stuff of Hollywood legend. The dress itself was a showstopper, gold lame, shimmering with every movement, and cut so tight it left little to the imagination. When Marilyn finally arrived, she reportedly wriggled into her seat, immediately drawing every eye in the room. For many attendees, her entrance was iconic. For others, it was scandalous. Are you one of the attendees who were unimpressed? Joan Crawford. The Hollywood veteran was not simply insulted, she was furious. Crawford reportedly stated that Marilyn's dress and behavior were inappropriate, even accusing her of conducting a burlesque show at a prominent occasion. The media, of course, devoured it. The next day's headlines paired the old Hollywood guard against a budding star. Monroe's bold outfit and unashamed sexuality contrasted sharply with Crawford's more conservative ideals. Fans either supported Marilyn's bravery or chastised her for crossing the queue. Still, Crawford didn't let the incident slide, and their feud would soon escalate into one of Hollywood's most publicized rivalries. Feud with Joan Crawford. If the Photoplay Awards set the stage, the feud between Marilyn Monroe and Joan Crawford became a full-blown Hollywood spectacle. After Crawford's public critique of Marilyn's gold dress incident, the media wasted no time fanning the flames. Photoplay magazine took it to the next level with a story titled "Hollywood vs. Marilyn Monroe," painting Crawford as the bitter veteran who couldn't handle Monroe's meteoric rise. According to the article, Crawford was jealous of Marilyn's fresh appeal and accused her of bringing down the dignity of Hollywood. For Marilyn, this feud was more than simply drama, it was free exposure. Fans flocked behind her, perceiving her as the new face of Hollywood glamour, whereas Crawford appeared antiquated and out of touch. The story simply enhanced Marilyn's image as a rebellious underdog who refused to follow Hollywood's traditional conventions. But, behind the scenes, the feud was not as one-sided as it appeared. Crawford apparently attempted to reconcile, but Marilyn refused to play nice. She continued to push the boundaries, and Crawford's criticism simply fueled her desire to stand out even more. And while their rivalry made headlines, Marilyn didn't dwell on it for long. She had bigger battles to fight and even bigger scandals to face, posing for soft porn and nude photography. One of the most controversial chapters in Marilyn Monroe's career is her early work in nude photography, which would later come back to haunt her. Monroe, who was then known as Norma Jean Mortensen, appeared for what can only be described as cheesecake photos, soft porn to be plain. One of the most notorious shoots was for the Golden Dreams calendar, a naked series that was far from the beautiful, sophisticated character Marilyn would later become renowned for. You can see her reaction here when she was confronted with it.
They said, "Did you pose for a calendar?" And I said, "Yes. Anything wrong?"
These photos were risque for the time, showing Monroe in sensual poses that would later be regarded as controversial, especially when they resurfaced after she shot to fame. And she said,
Their voices say you didn't. I said, "But I did. I feel I should say that I did." And they were very unhappy.
But here's the thing. Monroe didn't avoid the past. When the images were recovered, she took ownership of the narrative rather than denying it. She famously stated, "I was hungry and I was 3 weeks behind on rent." She did not flinch or apologize for needing the work. This candor regarding her financial troubles, as well as her willingness to pose for the images without apologizing, was remarkable. It was more than simply a photo shoot. It was a part of her journey, a piece of her tale she refused to hide, even when the media sought to sensationalize it. Monroe's candor regarding her objectives demonstrated a level of honesty that was uncommon. particularly in Hollywood. And speaking of complicated relationships, let's talk about one that raised even more eyebrows. Relationship with Johnny Hyde. Marilyn Monroe's relationship with Johnny Hyde, a much older and powerful talent agent, has long been the subject of fascination and scrutiny. At the time they met, Monroe was struggling to make a name for herself in Hollywood, and Hyde, who was in his 50s, was already a well-established agent. He helped Monroe secure a 7-year contract with 20th Century Fox, something that would change her life and career forever. However, the relationship was more than just professional, it was extremely personal. Hyde apparently fell madly in love with Monroe. This unrequited love called into question the boundaries between business and pleasure in Hollywood. Many see it as a power imbalance. Hyde, the older, powerful man, and Monroe, the young, vulnerable starlet trying to make it big. Monroe, of course, would later find fame and independence, but at this point she was dependent on Hyde for more than just her career. It was a relationship that blurred lines, both personal and professional. Their bond, while full of ambition, had a nasty side. Some considered it as exploitation, while others saw it as an essential step for Monroe to enter the film industry. And that, ladies and gents, is Marilyn Monroe's legacy, a combination of genius, controversy, and complexity. These controversies, whether self-inflicted or the result of a harsh Hollywood system, make her narrative both compelling and tragic. She was more than just a star. She represented the cost and power of fame. What are your thoughts on Monroe's journey? Was she a victim of Hollywood, or did she play the game her way? Let us keep the conversation going, and if you like this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.